to the Investor Coaching Show, a podcast to help you get an insider's view of the financial world and escape common investment traps. And here's your host, Paul Winkler.
And welcome. This is the Investor Coaching Show. Paul Winkler. Along with Mr. Ira Work playing air drums and singing.
Why not? I mean, it's a great day outside. I was riding with the top down.
Did you ride with? Yeah, you did. That's right.
Oh, yeah, man.
Man.
I mean, I drive around with my top down. I wonder, how come everybody doesn't have a convertible?
You know, I was actually on my way here, and I was scared for a motorcycle rider. This guy is going, and I guess his hood kept flipping up on the cycle, on his helmet. And he's going down the cycle, and then he's got something in his left hand, and I'm watching this car come up, just zooming up on the right, and this guy's looking back, like, keeps turning around, looking back. You know, trying to see where stuff is. And I could just be, I could be thinking that's my son, Or, I think if that were my kid, I would be so angry at cars around just not paying any attention whatsoever to this poor guy that has, you could tell he was having a problem.
Well, the funny thing is my mom...
And you ride bikes, so yeah, this is something...
and that's what I was just going to say. My mom says that she's afraid. Mm-hmm. Like, she avoids the motorcyclist because she's afraid of what might happen. I'm like, you know what, Mom? We're actually more afraid of you.
Yeah.
I mean, you're in a cage. You're protected. My wife says all the time, I'd rather ride with you on the motorcycle than be in the car with you.
Well, so you bring this up, and I wasn't going to talk about this right away, but it's interesting because that's kind of the hit and miss. And I was going to make a parallel in investing versus vehicle sales. I just think this is just an interesting time in the world right now. And, there was this whole thing on CNBC. They were talking about markets, and one guy's bringing up this fund that's investing in both stocks and bonds, and how it is doing versus quote unquote the market. They're always, for them, the market is the S&P 500. But in this particular case, what was interesting was this guy's talking about the stocks and how bonds, because of interest rate increases, have actually gone down as well. And a lot of the bonds that are longer duration bonds have been specifically a problem. And I thought, there's a parallel in life, in general, when it comes to, if you look at vehicles and vehicle sales and how people approach investing in the stock market. And as I'm doing this parallel, I find another completely unrelated, well, it wasn't an unrelated article, but it was talking about electric vehicles and just booming sales, absolutely booming sales for electric vehicles. And they said that they're coming with road safety issues. And I'm like, well, what are the road safety issues? And it was, climate safety. And they said, you got climate safety, and then you got climate goals, and then road safety. It's clashing. And basically what they're saying in this article was that, all things being equal, choosing electric vehicle over an internal combustion engine is likely to be a better move for the planet thanks to motors. That's debatable, right? That don't spew greenhouse gases while underway. But all things aren't always equal. Battery-powered cars and trucks tend to be far heavier than gas-burning counterparts. Extra bulk translates into a mixed bag of benefits and concerns, especially when it comes to safety. Occupants of heavy vehicles tend to fare better in an accident, of course. But, what happens to pedestrians? What happens to people that are in smaller cars? What happens to people on motorcycles? What happens when they're hit by a vehicle that is way the heck heavier and maybe doesn't stop as fast? And I thought, never really thought about that. It's just, to me, and I was talking about this, I guess it was last week. There was one of the guys that was on CNBC, and he was talking about taking his vehicle, and he converted it to be able to ride on either gas or it was natural gas. And it was just easy, bam. He just did it just like that. He was able to convert this thing right over. No problem. He says, I'll show you. I got a video. I can show you how to do this. And I thought, wow, that's really, really interesting. And yet that's kind of something that has been frowned upon and nobody's pursuing right now. But you got to wonder if you have another administration that comes in and says, hey, we got this problem, we got this problem, we got this, several problems with electric vehicles. Maybe we don't need to necessarily go this direction. And I hadn't even thought about this, but think about it. Have you ever driven one, Ira?
I have not driven one, but I've driven in them.
Now, one of the things that I guess amazed me about them is the speed that they go from 0 to 60.
Yeah, they go a lot faster.
I mean, they can get up to speed really rapidly. There was an article years and years ago, Wall Street Journal, and this guy was over in, this shows you how old I was. He was in Iraq, comes back from Iraq. He was the king of the drag strip in his Corvette at the time before he went off to the war. And then what ended up happening, he goes off to war, he comes back, he gets out on the drag strip, gets his Corvette out there, and gets just absolutely whipped.
Probably by a Tesla.
Yeah, it was an electric car. I don't know if it may have been it may have been a Tesla, but it was just whipped, just like bam.
The Tesla,
0 to 60, it was done.
The Tesla is actually the fastest mass production car on the road.
Okay, so that wouldn't surprise me if that was it. I don't know if this was a mass production car that he was beat by, but regardless, they do get up to speed much more rapidly. So the question becomes, you're a teenager. You're going through those years where you're bulletproof. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, everybody else must be bulletproof too, if you are.
No, just you are.
Well, they sure act like it. But, it's just this belief that, I'm immortal, nothing's going to touch me. And you wonder if that's going to be part of the issue with risk as well. So that was something that was going through my mind as I was watching this motorcycle. I'm going, gosh, this is right. But here's the thing about investing markets. You've been doing this, 38 years, coming up on 40 years. And, you look back at history, and I was talking to one of the guys this week, and he says, I said, how are things going? He says, it's a little bit slow, so far. And I said, always that way during weird market conditions. Mm-hmm. And especially with most investment managers right now and in most mutual funds, and this is something I talked about last year significantly, is the huge investment companies are way, way overweighted with large U.S. blend stocks and growth stocks. And, like Vanguard was at like 92% of their assets that were under management were in large growth and large blend, the S&P 500 and the Russell 1000 growth index. Those two areas, that's predominantly where their money under management is. And that's because that's what sells. That's what sells for the American investor. If you go to Australia, they like Australian stocks. If you go to Japan, they like Japanese companies and so on and so forth. I've talked about that before. But here's the thing, is if you look at what has, Fidelity too, for that matter, it's like 87%. Now, if you look at what has had the hardest time so far this year, it has been that market segment predominantly has had the most difficult time this year, because when interest rates rise and inflation rises, growth stocks are hurt the most because you're getting the earnings 5 years from now. And if you've got a higher interest rate that you're discounting at, that present value will be lower. So what happens is the stock prices just have to drop. So a lot of people they've been nailed lately. And I think personally, I don't know what we think about this, but I think that a lot of people aren't making any moves right now because they've been so beaten up. And the same thing happened in 2001, 2002. I'll never forget 2001, 2002, when I was doing this show. And I was on there going, hey, people call the show and hey, Paul, I've got this growth stock fund, this tech stock fund. What do you think I ought to do? And I say, well, number one, you're not diversified. You shouldn't have all your eggs in that basket. And that's the area that just got nailed. And I said, when's the best time to be prudent? And they'd be, well, now, or whenever you figure out what prudent is. And I go, right, good. So change.
All right, so
don't stay there.
But it's easy to understand why investors are kind of maybe sitting on the sidelines. Mm-hmm. Okay, if we look at some headlines, and these are from fundamental analysts, people who look at the value of security pricing.
Okay.
One of the headlines reads, there's a roughly 90% chance the stock market has already bottomed in 2022. It could surge towards the end of the year. We're avoiding a recession. The next headline from Jamie Dimon from
So
JP Morgan.
we got no place to go but up, first headline.
Right. This headline says, we are facing challenges at every turn, a pandemic, unprecedented government actions. We should prepare for the potential of negative outcomes.
There you go.
Now, that was April 3rd for the first, April 4th for this one.
Oh, so right within a day of each other. Yeah, it's great. You ought to get in. The water's nice.
Goldman Sachs, your portfolio will flatline this year.
There
if
you
you're
go.
lucky.
Negative. There you go.
A worst-case scenario of a 21% drop would feel as investors have dodged a bullet. A gain of 4% would be nothing short of a blessing. That's from Goldman Sachs.
Okay. All right.
Deutsche Bank, we no longer see the Fed achieving a soft landing. Instead, we anticipate a more aggressive tightening of monetary policy, which will push the economy into recession.
Okay. So it sounds like you've got 3 negatives to a positive so far.
But then we have Market Watch.
Okay.
Dow transports are in a ditch. Can the market and economy be far behind?
Okay. That sounds like another negative. You got 4 negatives to 1 positive.
Then there's one from this Motley Fool, which I always laugh at people who call themselves investors with jester hats. Kathy Wood goes on a bargain hunting. Just bought 3 stocks.
Well, Kathy Wood, actually, her fund is down like 45% or something like that.
So maybe she's buying them from her own fund.
She still has inflows. She still has inflows. Well, you got to give them credit for having not given up.
Well, at least, you know what? It would make sense, though, buying low. And then there's a thing from our favorite economist of all. Who is that?
Harry Dent?
Harry Dent. Falling home prices since May 2020.
That's not really favorite, folks.
He is. He's our favorite economist to make fun of.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Falling home sales since May 2020 say recession hits by late 2022. He's been wrong every time, though.
Well, yeah.
Home prices adjusted for inflation now higher than the 2006 bubble peak.
So, and I'm just going and looking at headlines right now, and I'm seeing some are saying the market's going to go up, some are going to say it's going to go down, and hence the reason that nobody knows. But back to my point, investors, when they have seen losses in their portfolios, and I would submit that their losses probably been far more than they should have been based on that they weren't diversified, often think, I messed up. When things get better, I'll get back in, or I will fix it, or I'm just going to wait for it to come back. It's kind of like being at the gambling casino. I'm going to wait for it to come back, and then I'll go and change and be prudent with the portfolio. And I always say, no, best time to be prudent is right now.
And people that did that at the, somewhere in 2001, 2002, that got out, they didn't see anything come back until 2012 to 13. They lost a good 10 years.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people, because they look at anything where you see an upturn as a sucker's rally. And that's kind of what they call it. It's called a sucker's rally, and nobody wants to be a sucker. So back to the articles, I looked at a surge in battery prices isn't enough to stop record sales for electric car makers. So basically what they're saying is people are buying electric cars like crazy. Well, why? Because gas prices are high, right? As soon as gas prices go up, people start to buy electric cars. And then, you look back and say, well, what was happening just 2 years ago? No joke. Just 2 years ago, New York Times. This was May 21st of 2020, this article was written. Rise of SUVs leaving cars in their dust with no signs of slowing. You can't make this stuff up.
No.
So what happens is when gas prices are low, people think that this is going to be the way it is forever. It's just gas prices are always going to be low. So let's buy, the biggest car that we can. And then when gas prices are high, then what we do is we go, well, things are always going to be this way. Let's buy electric cars. And then when gas prices go down again, you're going to see, and I think you just got to figure the car makers, they have to love this stuff. Have to love this stuff, and it's just like Wall Street. They have to love it when you get undisciplined and markets go down and you get despondent, you sell, and, there are all kinds of things out there right now. How to make money on your cash. How to get higher returns. That was Jason Zweig's column this week. It was on how to make more money on your cash. And then when the market goes up, it's like how you can get rich on Wall Street, how you can make more money, how you can do better, how you can, beat the competition, how you can beat how you can beat the index or whatever. You will see it goes back and it whipsaws investors back and forth, and they don't stand a chance against an industry that will constantly come out with new information on why you should buy, why you should get out, when it's going to go up, when it's going to go down, and how you can predict the future. Depressing.
Well, here's a good example.
All right.
In his morning show, this is going back to the beginning of April, Cramer, in his morning show, he was having a discussion of several negative fundamental
Jim Cramer?
economic items, and told his audience, the time to be more conservative is now. It's now, he emphasized with his own. Later that night, he went online.
No.
And he said, to rebound soon, I don't want to be too conservative.
You've got to be kidding me. In one day.
In one day.
In one day.
Yep. One day.
Now, who's that? The comedian there? The Jonathan. Who is that guy that just took him to task? I can't even think of the guy's name. But he's taking him to task publicly. Cramer actually agreed to go on this guy's show, which
that was Jon
Stewart.
Right.
I said Jonathan, and that's what threw my brain all off. Yeah, Jon Stewart, that's who it was. You're exactly right. And then he just looked like a puppy dog, just with his head hung. I know, I could do better. And I just thought, well, why don't you do better? Well, you don't do better, and the industry doesn't do better because there's no incentive to do better than what they're doing. There's no economic incentive for them to do any better. So they're going to whipsaw you, and when you're scared, they're going to put you in annuities. When you're euphoric, they're going to put you in their stock rally market rally funds or whatever they call, or their tech funds or their future tech funds, like the Cathie Wood thing there. It's future disruptive technology funds. They're going to get you riled up on what, and I see these new ETFs. Every time I watch TV, there's a new ETF. And this new ETF is going to help you capitalize on the coming trends. And then you jump in, it falls apart. I mean, good grief. That one fund because Cathie Wood was on top of the world for quite a while, and everybody, they're all talking about it. Oh, look at this huge returns from this investment manager. And it's just absolutely getting trashed right now. Absolutely getting trashed year to date. It's horrible. It's brutal. But that's the way Wall Street works.
There's over 2,600 ETFs.
Well, yeah. Yeah. And, I know that they come and go. Mm-hmm. It's not even something that is stable.
Well,
some of them, you can't get enough funding, and then they go down and they go away.
Well, it's like mutual funds. I mean, if you think about all the number of funds that were born since the first fund in 1926, there have been over 64,000 mutual funds created. Mm-hmm. And today there's just over 30,000 open.
And which ones do they close?
All the bad ones.
They close the ones that don't look good.
Right.
And it's like kicking out your D students and your F students in class. Makes the teacher look better.